Principles of nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is sending and receiving of wordless clues. It includes concept of time, concept of space, body language, and a lot more. Nonverbal communication has a distinct history. Nonverbal communication is biologically based, whereas verbal communication is culturally based. So they are two different. Nonverbal communication started very early in the evolutionary process, whereas verbal communication started, as we know, very late in this evolutionary process. So some nonverbal communication has the same meaning across cultures, while no verbal communication systems share that same universal recognizability. We know that all the languages are different from each other. So what we say in one language is different from other language. So they are culturally different because language is a cultural phenomenon. Whereas nonverbal, a lot of time, is similar among culture. However, there are different concepts of nonverbal communication in different cultures. But compared to the verbal communication, it is shared by different culture, different people, in different times in different continents. The expression of the emotions in man and animal. Charles Darwin, in his book, The Expression of the Expression of Emotions in Man and Animal, published in 1872, gave a new concept of nonverbal communication. And all the studies and research on nonverbal communication started after this publication of the book, in which he argued that both man and mammals convey their non-verbal communication or convey their emotion through their facial expression. We see that animals too make facial expression to convey their feelings. So he posed two very pertinent questions. One, why do facial expression of emotions take the particular form they do? And in certain, in expression of certain emotions, we adopt or we wear certain emotion. Why do we do so? And second question, why do we wrinkle our nose when we are disgusted and bare our teeth when we are enraged? So far as the first question is concerned, Darwin and his followers believe that we convey facial expression to show our emotion. For example, before making an assault, the animals make facial expression and they show they bare their teeth to externalize their emotions, right? Similarly, when we wrinkle our face, our nose especially, wrinkle our nose, we are actually stop inhaling foul smells. So these are two of the answers that were given to these very important questions. Darwin also believed that facial expression to serviceable associated habits, which are behavior that earlier in our evolutionary history had specific and distinct function. So Darwin said that why have they still existed? Why the facial expression or wrinkling of the nose still exist when we have started verbal communication? So in his opinion and in his followers' opinion, the communicative value of these internal feeling to show externally has this communicative value. That's why we keep them still with us. Why do facial expression persist when do they no longer? So as I said, that they still have communicative value throughout these evolutionary process or these evolutionary period. Facial expression has acquired communicative value throughout evolutionary history. So, in other words, humans utilize facial expression to externalize their internal feelings. So, what they are feeling in their mind, they externalize through their facial expression, through their body language, through their non-verbal or wordless clues. Non-verbal communication has evolved earlier than verbal communication and served an earlier and important survival function. We all know that verbal communication started very late. As we just said, that it is culturally based, whereas non-verbal communication is biologically based. It started in the very early evolutionary process of human being. So obviously, this is older than the verbal communication. The fact that non-verbal communication is processed by an older part of the brain, obviously, the non-verbal communication, as it started earlier, so it was there in the evolutionary process of the brain. So it is found in the older part of the brain than the verbal communication. So non-verbal communication is very important. It shows our interpersonal relationship. It shows our emotion. When we are talking to someone, we are also conveying our emotion, and this conveyance of emotion share our feelings with others of good or bad they may be. Similarly, it is involuntary. We cannot help showing non-verbal communication. This is involuntary. And it is sometimes, however, non-verbal communication is ambiguous, especially when it is between and among cultures. But still, it has more credit. It's more credible. We give more credit to non-verbal communication compared to the verbal communication. We believe more on non-verbal communication when we are interacting with people than on verbal communication.